It is Sunday, the 15th of March, 2020. Besides being the Ides of March, it is also the day on which the COBP, Coalition Opposée à la Brutalité Policière, hold their annual anti-police brutality march protest. That begins at around 3 o'clock at Place du Canada. I decided to mark the occasion myself by coming to PDQ 11 here in NDG and saying a thing or two about my experiences with the SPVM, which by no means are all negative. Actually had some pretty good experiences with SPVM police officers, including just earlier as I was setting up my camera to protest. 2 or 3 officers, came over and spoke with me and asked me what I was doing, and I explained it to them. And they were, very happy to just let me do my thing. They in no way tried to discourage me. They in no way tried to prevent me, from protesting and so on. I actually told them that one of the things I wanted to do was protest in favor of keeping PDQ 11 as a local SPVM police station rather than merging it into PDQ 9. I actually did a quite long monologue in a previous video clip, but unfortunately the battery died and I don't know when it died. So probably a good chunk of that monologue got cut off. So I'm basically just doing a brief rehash. I don't think I'm going to repeat much of what I said in that monologue right now. But I just wanted to make it clear that from my perspective, in terms of PDQ 11 being closed down and merged into PDQ 9, I can see that there are certain advantages. There are certain reasons for doing that, but I think there's also reasons for not doing that. And I think it is better overall to have smaller local police stations where the police officers are closer to the community, have a good understanding of what's happening in the community. That's certainly true of my situation. I've been protesting against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse and other problems outside the Unitarian Church of Montreal for pretty much a quarter century now. And while there have been some problematic incidents with police in the past, I would say that since 2014, the interactions with the police from PDQ 11 have on the whole been pretty good, and in some cases exemplary. So basically, as a result of getting to know who I am and what I'm doing and so on, getting reasonably well briefed on the protest and what it's about and so on and so forth, perhaps also as a result of having had some complaints brought against them in the past and having some somewhat embarrassing videos up on YouTube, I can say that certainly since 2014, for the most part, the officers from PDQ 11 have been very polite and professional in their dealings with me. Very little attempts to intimidate me or obstruct me in terms of the protest. So essentially, I would say I had pretty good relations all around with the officers from PDQ 11. And certainly in my personal dealings with them, in terms of protesting, they've been generally very polite and professional and respecting my rights and so on, including today. So that's it. I just wanted to make that point. There are some other points I did make in the monologue. I don't know how many of them actually got recorded because the battery did die at some point and I really don't know when. Bonjour.
Are you protesting the Station 11 closure or?
That's part of it. Both.
Both? Okay.
It's combined protest.
Okay.
I'm basically saying how because the local station.
You want to move to Kosei?
Right, I know, but what I'm saying is because they're well briefed on my protest and everything,
Yes.
The last 5 or so years, they've actually been pretty good.
Normally you're at the Westmont.
Well, I got shut down. I got shut down by the mayor, but
Okay.
but basically what it comes down to is I'm saying I think it's better that either it stays,
Yeah.
or if it doesn't stay, if they do have to merge, what they should do is they should reopen some smaller storefront type stations on Monkland or Sherbrooke, or something like have something close to the community.
Yes. No, I believe they should have one in this area because
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
a lot of things are centered. They're central to a lot of like Monkland.
Exactly, like it's local. And like what I'm getting at is they know the local situation. They
Yes.
know me. 2 or 3 of them came out as I was setting up the camera, and they're asking what it was about, and I told them what it was about, and they didn't try to stop me. They didn't interfere or anything.
No, you're allowed to express your
Yeah, but what I'm
opinion.
getting at is, well, yeah, but I've had plenty of attempts to shut down my protest in front of the church over the years. Not since 2014 so much, other than what happened with Sue Montgomery, who basically abused her power as far as I'm concerned. That's a whole other issue. As far as I'm concerned, she brought a bogus, criminal complaint against me to shut down my protest, amongst other things. So that's that. We're dealing with it.
Okay.
But in terms of the local station, that's why I'm here. Is I'm basically saying, we should have local stations. If this really does have to shut down and merge with 9, then at least they should open up something on local on, let's say, on Monkland or Sherbrooke. I think
Is there an example where they've opened just a storefront type?
I don't know, but that's what I'm suggesting. I'm allowed to suggest things, right?
Of course.
Right. So that's it. That's basically it. As you may know, today's the anti-police brutality protest they have every year. That's starting at 3 o'clock at Place de Canada. So I'm about to wrap up here and go there. I document it every year. But thanks for your interest. Any more questions? Or?
No.
Right.
I'm okay with certain aspects of it.
Yeah. Right. Well, don't believe everything you read in the Gazette, by the way. There's a lot of misinformation. And and seriously, if you would like to know more about that whole situation, you can comment on my videos, or you can comment on my blog, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Okay, you're welcome. Yeah. So that was a guy on a bike came by, asked a few questions, and I explained it to him. And in a way, it's a good thing. Like, somebody just comes out of the blue, an ordinary citizen, I believe, and wants to know what I'm protesting, and I tell him it's actually combined. It's basically a protest in favor of keeping PDQ 11, or at least some local station, maybe even, like I said, smaller storefront type thing on a major artery like Monkland or Sherbrooke, where there's a lot of storefronts and so on. But I also explained, the whole situation with the Unitarian Church of Montreal, not in much detail. Yeah, if he wants to know more, he can contact me via YouTube or via my blog or Twitter, for that matter. I didn't mention Twitter, or Facebook. I should have mentioned Facebook. I'm just going to make sure this thing's still running. I think we're just about to wrap this up. And yes, it's 8 minutes or so. So yeah, I just wanted to be sure that was actually recorded. But yeah, the sign here says Unitarian Universalist Perversion of Justice sucks you asterisk you. Essentially, part of Unitarian Universalist Perversion of Justice includes misusing the SPVM police force to try and intimidate me into shutting down my protest, or even bringing bogus criminal charges against me to impose conditions on me. When you're arrested, they impose conditions on you, saying, well, you can't be here or there or do this or that. And that's exactly what happened, and that's why I believe criminal charges were brought against me. As much as anything else, the reason for bringing criminal charges against me was to impose conditions that literally made it impossible for me to protest against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse, etc., outside the Unitarian Church of Montreal. That's not very good in my opinion. As far as I'm concerned, it's trampling on my charter rights and freedoms. On the other hand, there's a Unitarian Church in Lachine, so I can go to the one in Lachine and protest, which I have been doing. But I can protest pretty much anywhere else, such as right here in front of PDQ 11. In fact, when my ability to protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal was shut down as a result of the release conditions and bail conditions placed on me, I came here and protested a few times. This isn't the first time I've protested in front of PDQ 11. And in fact, one of the reasons I don't want it to shut down and move is because I'd like an alternative place to protest that's not too far from where I live. You know, it's like, you know, I could have gone to the Unitarian Church of Montreal, Unitarian Church in Lachine. It's called the Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist Congregation, by the way. And if you run a search on Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist Congregation, you'll find my protests, especially if you add protest or whatever. And I will say actually that as far as that goes, they've been trying to shut down my protest, and there's been a couple of interactions with SPVM police officers from PDQ 8 in Lachine, and they've actually gone quite well too. So far they've respected my rights. I believe we've had 2 interactions. One of them, I do believe that it was almost certainly as a result of a completely false complaint brought against me by one of the members of the Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist congregation. I can't prove it, but from the sound of things, you know, well, I might be able to prove it if I could actually investigate, you know, who actually made the call and this and that, but I actually haven't done that. But nonetheless, the last interaction that I had with SPVM police officers in front of the Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist congregation essentially came about because somebody had called into the police and claimed that I was promoting pedophilia and rape outside the church, which is ridiculous. I'm actually protesting against pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers and the cover-up and denial of pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers. In fact, I'm protesting against the abusive misuse of Canada's blasphemy law by the Unitarian Universalist Association in Boston. In 2012, the Unitarian Universalist Association in Boston had me served with a cease and desist demand letter that, amongst other things, falsely accused me of violating Canada's blasphemy law in an effort to intimidate me into taking down blog posts that told the truth about pedophilia and rape committed by Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell and also Richard Buell of First Parish in Orwell in Boston area. So basically what happened is I blogged about a few Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and or rapists, and the Unitarian Universalist Association of Boston, that's basically the Vatican, as it were, of the Unitarian Universalist Church, the corporate headquarters, if you will, of the Unitarian Universalist Church, you know, tried to scare me into taking down blog posts, those blog posts and some other ones, by, pretty good, by threatening to have me prosecuted for violating Canada's blasphemy law. So I've been protesting against that for, you know, ever since 2012, essentially. In fact, I have the signs with me. I think I'll just pull them out. So these are the signs that I normally display regarding that perversion of justice, as it were. A perversion of justice of, I would say, a truly egregious manner, you know, like accusing me of blasphemy for blogging about Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and rapists is a little much. Anyhow, I think most of the SPVM police officers understand now that that's, you know, a major part of what I'm doing, and I don't think they have a problem with that. The police officers from Lachine, as I said, they did respect my rights. They may not have known me all that well, but perhaps as a result of the media attention that came to my protest as a result of Côte-de-Neige Notre-Dame de Grâce-Mère Sue Montgomery, who's also a Montreal Unitarian and who has in the past involved herself in efforts to shut down my protest. Perhaps as a result of the media reports, you know, they had a better idea of what I'm doing, even though the media reports are very biased in favor of Sue Montgomery and against me and trying to portray me as this obsessed stalker or whatever. I think, you know, especially a cop who uses his brain or her brain and sort of reads between the lines a bit, they can figure out, you know, what's really going on. And so I think actually a fair number of SPVM police officers probably respect what I'm doing and don't want to intervene in a way that shuts down my protest. On that note, I think we will wrap things up. We got people coming through here, and I do want to go and document that anti-police brutality protest. So I think we're going to wrap up this protest. There's some things I may not have spoken about. There's some things that didn't get recorded because the camera battery died, but I think we're pretty well done for now. I'm just going to check the time on this. And yeah, so 15 minutes, just coming up for 16 minutes. Got about a minute left in the clip, so I think we're done here. So it's March 15th, the Ides of March, also the day of the COBP anti-police brutality protest. And so I decided to mark the occasion myself by doing a little impromptu protest here in front of Poste de Cartillons in NDG, and basically in favor of keeping it if we can. And if we can't, then I think it would be good to, if they do a big merger with PDQ9, then at least open up some smaller storefront police stations in NDG. You know, just some stations where people can just walk in if needs be. I would say on commercial strips like Sherbrooke or Monkland, you know, find an empty storefront and put a few police officers in there. That's pretty much it for now. And one more time, saying that certainly in the last 5 years or so, the PDQ 11 officers have been pretty good in my view. That's it for now.